Hello, everyone. I have to admit that it was a little bit hard for me to figure out what I wanted to say about peace today because this is an unpeaceful world right now. It's growing in unpeace. And it's one of those things where I think that, what I've done over the last probably 10 years is try to help people find peace within themselves. And for years, I have said the soul will be our salvation. And I said that for a couple layers, but now I'm really realizing that it is our soul that we need to turn to in order to find that inner peace. We have to get to that place. And I'm going to admit that, I every day I walk around with a heavy heart with what is going on. Every day I feel the heaviness. Every day I feel the unrest. I feel the concern. I see the concern in other people. And yet my soul is at peace because I know a little bit more about what this is all about and how this is part of the grand scheme and part of the grand plan. And so I want to share a little bit of that with you today and why and how I know that. So, first of all, your heavy hearts are there to help you build love and unconditionality and compassion toward others. The challenges, there's always been good and evil. There's always been good and evil on this planet. And that's part of the challenge, but that's also part of the grand test from the universe is basically to say, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose good or are you going to choose evil? Are you going to choose dark or you're going to choose light? And so it's this whole idea of at the biggest scheme, at the grandest scheme of all of this, is a bit of a cosmic test for us to figure out how can we, even with very, very heavy hearts, stay at peace with ourselves so that we can create peace amongst us. Now, that seems impossible given what's going on. And, in our country, we have not seen this for a few hundred years. And so we this is particularly uncomfortable for us, but in other countries, they are under war, they're under siege, they're under all these different conditions that they have been carrying around with them for a very long time. So we have to realize that this is like the domino effect. We are here to experience this ourselves for many, many reasons. Not only how is it that we are supposed to find peace within ourselves, but how is it that we join together? How is it that we join into what I call oneness and realize that, we're all on this planet trying to do the same thing. The challenge with this, and I'm going to bring in some statistics for you. The challenge with it is we have more people on this planet than we did just 100 years ago. So when the pandemic was happening, I read a book about the 1918 pandemic, and it struck me because the estimates of the population around the world were about 1.5 billion at the time. Now we have over 8.6 billion souls on this planet. So just in 100 years, we have somehow gained over 7 billion, I'm going to say that again, 7 billion souls. So that is partially why it is hard for us to see peace right now, because there are more souls trying to figure it out. There are more souls, a lot more souls, trying to figure out what this peace thing is. And because I do soul work, I'm going to help bring this back into the soul. That means that there are over 7 billion more souls that are under their evolutionary path right now. They're here to evolve. They're here to see what we can do differently. And if you think again, grand scheme, widest lens you can possibly think of, and I say this on an individual basis as well, is that evolution never comes without discomfort. And we are being called for peace in a whole different way. We are being called to go in and realize that what is happening around us is wrong. We are individually being called by watching what's going on around the world. But because there are so many more souls on this planet than there were just 100 years ago, the call is bigger, the call is wider, the call is deeper, the call is louder and more abrasive, more dangerous, more concerning, because it has to wake up that many more souls in order to learn and evolve into that loving kindness, learn and evolve into this higher order kind of experience of love. And I have said for years that basically the quote technology of this planet is to learn love and self-love. And, we are, for those of you who understand kind of planetary energies and star seeds and where different souls come from, and I know a lot of you may not, but really there's something called star seeds that basically helps you realize that very few of the souls on this planet are actually from this planet. And so their souls are created in a different way. And a lot of souls are coming here to learn love. But how do they learn it? They have to learn it through fear and hate, because sometimes we have to learn it opposite in order to evolve into where we're supposed to be. And so this whole concept of this whole idea of learning to learn love, learning to be in oneness, learning to love one another and be in loving kindness toward one another is such a monstrous, and that's probably too small of a word. It's a monstrous task. So the universe is creating a lot of unrest in a way to help us realize that, wait a minute, we have to get through our heavy hearts, get down to that soul level, live through peace so that we can learn how to live through peace with other people. Now, I am one to say it is not easy, because I have people in my neighborhood who are hateful. I have people around me who are hateful. It is very hard for someone who wants to live in peace and loving kindness and who doesn't want to have to speak up, who doesn't want to have to assert themselves. It's very, very hard for souls to be able to realize that sometimes we have to find our voice for the sake of love. We have to put out our country voice, as my mom used to say, and get stern in order to show people that unkindness is not good. It's not welcome. It's not wanted. So this whole idea of finding peace is a big one. It is an intricate, complicated, big task, monstrous task. And so from a soul level, I have said over and over again that the soul will be our salvation. And it's this idea now, again, every time I say that, I learn a little bit more about why I've started to really say this for years. But the soul will be our salvation. Our individual souls have to grasp the idea of peace. We have to grasp that idea of love in order to get where we're supposed to be. Now, on an individual soul basis, that's exactly what we're supposed to do. That's the only way we evolve, is to get to that place of loving kindness toward ourselves. And that is really what will help us graduate from this human condition kind of situation if we learn love in such a way. And yet, the challenge is we have so many souls on this planet that are going to challenge us along the way. And we have to put on our country voice, as I said, to basically tell the people around us, you can't treat us like this, to call out the police, call out whomever it is that is creating havoc, but do it in a loving voice, because that is how we evolve, not only as individual, that is how we evolve as a population. And we are being called in such a big way, such a universal way, to get this through our thick skulls, get this through our souls in general. How is it that we can get to that place of peace? Now, from an astrological perspective, I do follow the astrological forecasts, and I watched a video 2 weekends ago about what is going to happen in the first quarter of 2026, and it's still tumultuous. We are going to have a lot of churning. I call it rototilling. It's like stuff has to be uncovered, stuff has to be turned upside down for us to say, "Whoa, we do not want this in our ground." That is a lot of what's happening right now. This whole thing in Minnesota, and I'd be very curious if there's some sort of sacred geometry line or ley line or something right around Minnesota that is calling people there to have this uprising, because it is getting people's attention. And I spoke to a couple colleagues last Friday about what's going on up there. They both live up there, and as therapists, they're just exhausted because they're constantly trying to talk their own clients about what's going on from an active trauma perspective. They're constantly under siege from an emotional perspective. So there are different pockets of things going on around the world, and it is all there to get our attention. It's all there to get us to do this evolution work. And if we don't do this evolutionary work, we are going to stay where we are. And so this call that I'm talking about, this call for peace, is not only a call outside of us, it's very much a call for inside of us. If we cannot be at peace with ourselves, if we cannot pull into those non-reactive states, if we can't pull into that whole idea of watching the world around us rather than getting absorbed in it, we are going to fail this test. We are going to fail this idea of being called for peace. And so, um, I spend every day trying to explain this to individual clients, and I just want to put this information out there to help you realize that this is a big task. Now, I'm going to go through a few other things that are going to probably stretch your brains a little bit, but also help you understand what is happening in this era in general. Now, a lot of people are thinking, that Donald Trump is reincarnated from Hitler or from some other heinous kind of person. Now, I do intuitive work. He is not the same soul as Hitler. However, there is an energy behind him that is stirring the energy in a very similar context. It's stirring this energy in basically a dark context. And I've been calling him one of the perfect dark heroes. And what I mean by that is if you think about Star Wars, you've got Darth Vader. If you think about the Hunger Games movies, President Snow, if you think about Harry Potter, you've got Voldemort, you've got all these different examples of dark lords or dark heroes. And from a literature perspective, we need dark heroes in order to turn people to light, to make people choose whether or not they're going from dark to light. The Wicked movie just recently, it's this whole idea of there's always going to be dark and light. And we have to think about it in terms of if we are going to evolve, we have to look at our own darkness. We have to look at our own stuff and see how it is pulling us in the dark direction versus evolving beyond it to pull us into the light direction. And everything that's going on around the world right now is testing souls. It is testing the population of this planet in order to turn the darkness into light. We are going to have lots of opportunities, meaning there's going to be a lot happening in the next several months to test us to see, can we stay in this light space? And when I talk about the soul, I talk about that eternal light. I talk about the radiance within us and how is it that we get there? And we only get there individually if we scrape off, meaning we work on clearing out, resolving, healing from the human condition. Now, that is a huge task in itself because of the fact that we do have over 8.6 billion people on this planet. And I would say a small fraction of those are doing their work. A very small fraction of them are actually looking at their stuff. From a therapy perspective, I don't know what the statistics are now. I just know that, again, small proportion of people that are doing their work and healing and moving beyond this stuff. Years ago, probably 20, 22 years ago, a colleague asked me what percentage of the population I thought were actually doing their work. And I paused long enough to say, probably less than 5% of the overall population. So we've got a big task ahead of us. And the reason that I bring this up now is that it's so important for us to do our work. It is so important for us to stay with that. And now I'm going to bring in the idea of these venerable monks that are walking the country as basically their walk for peace. A colleague brought this to my attention early January sometime, and I immediately became enamored by them because of the fact that they're walking with this loving kindness. They're walking with this peaceful energy. They're basically making a difference for the states that they're walking through. And it's really been both fun and beautiful to watch this whole process because they set out on this walk with no publicity, with nothing commercial around it. And now, they have over the last time I checked, 2.4 million people that are following them on Facebook. They've got an Instagram page. I don't know who set those up, but basically they are just showing that if you walk in peace, you promote peace. If you live peace, you promote peace. If you live as an example of peace, you promote peace. So it's this beautiful energy that has been going on. And so many people have become attached to them because not only are they a bright light in the darkness, but they are basically showing how we do this, showing that we can live in that place. And for those of you who think that Buddhism is a religion that you cannot penetrate because you live a different religion, Buddhism and Hinduism, they're considered religions in world religion books, but basically they're ways of being. They teach you ways of being. It's much more, oh gosh, it's much more a way of living and more of being than it is a religion. And so they're teaching people how to do this. They're just being examples, and that's what they do. And so it is a beautiful thing to watch this unfold, and I can't wait to see kind of how this unfolds by the time they get to Washington, D.C. There are so many things that are near and dear about this for me. And so I'm going to disclose a few things from a soul perspective that I haven't disclosed to a lot of people outside of friends and well, close colleagues. But it's this whole idea of, your soul is light. It goes on and on and on. It is basically energy. It's the energetic imprint of who you are on the world. And so, those of you who believe in past lives, you'll understand this. And those of you who don't really understand past lives, I'm probably going to crack some seals for you. So over 32 years ago or so, I went to my first intuitive reading. My one of my cousins had talked me into going, so I went, and I was always curious, just never really had the opportunity or knew who to go to. And the first thing this person says was that I was a monk, a monk, a teacher. Let's see, a monk, a nun, a teacher, a minister, and something else, and I don't remember, a priest. And she said those are among many of the things. So she was saying that I've always been involved in sacred kinds of energies, sacred kinds of teachings. And then many, many other intuitives along the way have taught me as well. And as I've been doing my own spiritual work, things have unfolded to the point where I understand some of those past lives. And, I've said on Facebook that every time I see the monks, I just tear up and I cry. I just weep because it's so beautiful. And it was really interesting because I have done a lot of my own past life work. I understand a lot of my past lives, but it was really interesting. I was talking to a colleague. I was doing a soul realignment session with a colleague a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to her, and she had mentioned something about a trek she did around Mount Everest. There's certain trail that she followed, and she said on one side of the mountain is the Hindu monks, on the other side is the Buddhist monks, and it hit me in that moment. Oh my gosh, that is why this is touching me so much because I also know with my trip to Nepal right before COVID started, so 2019, I knew and I talked to some of the monks at the Tiger's Nest that Tiger's Nest is actually a beautiful monastery on the side of the Himalayan mountains in Bhutan. And I had a quest that I had to fulfill there, and I'll talk about that in another video. But as I was sitting with those monks, I cried and sobbed, and they were doing blessings for me, and they were doing blessings for the next part of my journey, and I could not stop sobbing because it felt so much at home. And I'm going to tear up now. And so every time I teared up with watching those monks on the Facebook page, I didn't put it together that I was back in, it was actually 6,000 years ago or more. I was back in those days where, again, I was there to help promote peace at the time. I was actually one of the lead monks who had helped to instill the Himalayan mountains with peace energy and love energy. And then I found out the same thing about the Andes Mountains later, that basically I was one of the last Incan priestesses that was there to basically instill this whole idea of love energy and love consciousness. And I'm going to get teary with this again. The whole idea of watching what's happening now is moving me so much because there's only so much I can do again. And looking back to what I know of my past life in Bhutan, my past life in also the Andes Mountains, we can only do our part. We can only do what we can do because darkness and evil is always going to exist. It's that balance that's always going to be there. But you have to remember that the darkness is always there to bring others to light. So I'm going to say that again. The darkness is always there to bring others to light. And from a soul evolution perspective, we have to have the darkness. We have to have this challenge of gosh, which side are we going to go to? Are we going to fall to that pain and that fear? Or are we going to move to the light so that we can contribute to keeping that balance of moving toward light? Again, the challenge is we are being called to the test in a big way, in such a big way. And when I think about everything that's going on in the world and know that um, I can only do so much, and I've only been able to do so much in previous lifetimes, it's hard and it's painful, and yet I know I still have to do my part. I know that I still have to do my part, and I'm trying to urge everybody to do their part by doing their work. Get that darkness out of you. Get your wounds healed. Get your resentments and your frustrations and your anger and everything else that is keeping you from having that radiance within you. Do that work. And I think that that's my mission in this lifetime is to help people realize that the soul will be our salvation. We have to get to that point where we realize that our individual souls are the army. The individual souls and healing in that way is our army. That is how are going to get where we need to be. So for those of you who, again, understand more of this, I'm going to be putting out more and more information about my own spiritual history. because it's vast and it's interesting and it will hopefully teach you. Whew, here we go again. It will teach you that there's so much more to each and every one of us. And for those of you who were traumatized when it's called T2, a lot of people are calling the Trump administration T2, this current one, when the election happened and so many more people were traumatized this time than even the first time, it's because your souls were probably around at the time of Hitler or at the time of other terrible rulers that basically hurt you in one way or another. You probably witnessed something in one way or another. And so everything that's stirring you now is not only being stirred by current events, but it's probably, if you're stirred deeply, there's been a lifetime that you've had in the past that is reminding you of now. And you may not be aware of it. You may not know how to access that. But for those of you who have had big reactions to some of the events that have happened over the last 10 years, I can almost guarantee you, you were part of it. You were part of past kinds of events that are repeating themselves or at least seemingly looking similar to what they were several years ago. I don't know if you're following me with this, but what I'm trying to urge people to do is realize that what is going on within us is such a big test, but it's also enormously powerful. And if you can get to that peace within, it's going to take you further. So again, whether you believe what I've said about my own past lives thousands of years ago, whether it's in Nepal and Bhutan, or whether it was over in uh, the Andes Mountains and Machu Picchu, more to come on that because I want people to crack seals. I want people to understand that a lot of what you're feeling now is coming from past life trauma, past life events that you've experienced. But the only way that you heal that is to heal it in the now. You have to get to that peaceful place. And I'm going to do everything possible that I can to help you understand how to get there. So this is why I talk so much about bringing ancient wisdom to the modern soul to help you understand that this is all connected. My life now is connected to 9 or 10,000 years ago as a monk. And also my time in Machu Picchu. So and multiple other lifetimes that I'm aware of as well. Ireland, I've had lifetimes in Ireland where I was doing the same thing, trying to bring love and kindness and peace to people. And yet there was a lot of darkness there, a lot of people chasing people down that didn't need to be chased down. So we have so much to learn. We have so much to kind of crack these seals with and get you where you need to be. So I feel like I'm just going on, but I want you to understand that what you are experiencing now from a peace perspective or a lack of peace perspective is there to help you grow and evolve. And we just have to widen the lens to get there. So I encourage you to do your work. I encourage you to keep learning about the soul and how all of this relates. And also realize that current time is such a powerful time and we have such a big call. We have such a big choice to make. And I hope that I can contribute in some small way to getting you where you need to be. Have a wonderful day. Find the peace within your soul, even if you have that heavy heart. And we are going to get through this together. Bye-bye.